Okay, today we're going to be talking about sharing and creating not just in color. We've done some color palette experiments dealing with cones, spheres, multiple shapes floating in space, but we're going to begin to expand on that and bring that into our own creative marker and color pencil design of creating organic and geometric shapes just floating in space. You can slice them, dice them, open them, close them, but play around with the space and creating that illusion. So today all I'm going to do is just go back over how to deal with the color and the marker. There's two ways to do it. You can take your marker and go on top of your color pencil and it will blend, right? And that's a great way to kind of bring it together. So you kind of shade it, you're almost using it like a colorless blender, right? Or you can come through and a lot of times I'll go ahead and put in my flat layer of marker. I like any sort of alcohol marker for this, and but believe it or not, the washable Crayolas work well. They just don't melt the Prismacolor like the other markers do. So a lot of times I kind of play in. Right now I'm just using a single toned gray marker, and I'm making sure that I'm saturating and feathering. And we talked about that the other day. In order to get the alcohol markers to look completely flat on paper, you have to feather them in, saturate them, keep them kind of moving. Now, you do want to let it dry. Double check yourself and make sure that it has saturated through the paper. Okay, you can see that my earlier one had gone all the way through. Bad tubes on the back. How not to draw a tube. And then I'm simply just going to layer, once that dries, the Prismacolor into the space. And again, make sure your pencils are sharp. Pick the overall tonality to the shape. Again, it's a form. Don't lose what you learned about how to draw a sphere. Now, all you have to do is think about what the light source is doing on the surface of that sphere. So I can shade it first, or I can develop it from the background to the foreground. But what I like to do is just pick my set, and I've been kind of sticking to harmonious sets and then kind of coming back with a complement to darken. Being this a shadow area, I'm probably going to use the darker realm from that group there. And I'm going to kind of start in my medium. This is still a sphere. So I still want to stick to that dark to medium to light. Now my light source though is rolling from this side. Okay, so I still have to kind of think this is going to be my core shadow here. So I'm not going to get too dark on this particular shape. So I'm going to kind of think of this as I'm moving it through. I'm not a computer. I wish I was, and I could just kind of go click, 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 and there it was. But I do have to take my time and build my color pencil. Remember that chaining effect and keeping it smooth and moving away from having that hatching and cross hatching. A lot of people will demonstrate how to draw a sphere, but how do you work and keep it even when you're trying to overlap one behind another? That's going to be you just having to be really careful on those edges. Work your edges. Okay, I'm going to keep this side kind of light because it is where the light's coming from, even though this object is behind. I will always work the object that's behind a little first, then try to work the front objects, even though I'd already kind of started this one. Right, and then over here, I'm just going to get a lot darker. I am going to go ahead and kind of work this edge a little more. And I'm going to put this in back here because it is the part of the value of the piece. I'm going to keep it in the back too. Now that's just a dusting. And when I mean dusting, I just dust with the Prisma and now I'm going to build my layers. So I'm thinking about what happens with the second layer. I'm going to go ahead and kind of put a little bit more pressure so it begins to pull and mix just a little bit. I don't want to highlight on this so much. I don't want it just beamingly white up here. But I do want to highlight. So I'm going to show you how to kind of come back with that last value now. I don't know about you, but I use more than two colors, more than three colors. I use like 7 or 8. And this technique of chaining, I'm moving way too fast from what I would normally do. But I do kind of small circles. I don't like to sharpen, so I'll just stop and kind of turn my pencil. And that gives me a lot of leeway. Also, again, if I really want to smooth out areas, I will come back with the Prisma marker or with the gray marker. Now I'm going to go ahead and work my dark to light. I did not intend to pick up a black. It didn't. I picked up a brown, a deep, deep, deep brown. I avoid black at all costs. It's really the last thing